Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance as the massive ship moved through space toward the Galactic Council station. The stars outside the main viewing window looked the same as they always did, but today felt different. Today would change everything for humanity. The Galactic Council station was huge. It orbited around a planet called Zarian Prime and had been built by 12 different alien species over 300 years. The station was so big that it made even Earth's largest space bases look tiny. Morrison had seen pictures of it before, but seeing it in person was something else entirely. Commander Lisa Carter walked up to Morrison and handed him a datapad. She was his second in command and had been working with him for 5 years. Morrison trusted her completely. The datapad showed intelligence reports that had been coming in for months. The reports were not good news. "Sir, we have confirmation that 3 major powers have been meeting in secret," Carter said quietly. "The Zephyrian Empire, the Korathi Hegemony, and the Vexen Collective have been talking about what they call the human problem." Morrison read through the reports carefully. The alien governments were worried about humanity. They thought humans were expanding too fast and building too many weapons. They were afraid that Earth was becoming too powerful and might threaten their control of the galaxy. Dr. Nathan Brooks approached from the science station. He was the ship's expert on alien cultures and had spent years studying the different species in the galaxy. Brooks was also their diplomatic advisor and knew more about alien politics than anyone else in the human fleet. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the political situation," Brooks said. "The older civilizations have been in charge for thousands of years. They've never faced a challenge like humanity before. We've gone from a single planet to 17 colonies in just 50 years. That scares them." Morrison nodded. He had expected this day would come eventually. When humans first made contact with the galactic community, they had been welcomed as a new member species. But as Earth's colonies grew and human technology advanced, the welcome had become less warm. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. Everyone knew this was an important mission. Morrison had been summoned to appear before the Galactic Council for what they called a routine diplomatic briefing. But the intelligence report suggested it was anything but routine. Carter pulled up a star map on the main screen. It showed human space with all 17 colonies marked in blue. Around them, the territories of the major alien powers were marked in different colors. The Zephyrian Empire controlled the largest area, shown in purple. The Korathi Hegemony had the most heavily populated systems, marked in green. The Vexen Collective occupied fewer systems but had the most advanced technology, shown in red. "The aliens think we're preparing for war," Carter said. "They see our military buildup and our defensive installations and assume we're planning to attack someone." Morrison almost smiled at that. The aliens were right about one thing. Humanity was preparing for war. But not the kind of war they thought. Humans had learned from their own bloody history on Earth. They knew that sometimes peace could only be maintained through strength. Brooks brought up files on the key alien leaders Morrison would face. Chancellor Thexver of the Zephyrian Empire was old even by his species' standards. He had been in power for over 200 years and believed in the old ways of doing things. Commander Zixthal of the Korathi Hegemony was younger, but came from a military background. The Vexen Collective didn't have individual leaders, but instead operated as a hive mind. "Each species has their own concerns about humanity," Brooks explained. "The Zephyrians see us as upstart newcomers who don't respect tradition. The Korathi think we're too aggressive and unpredictable. The Vexen Collective views our individualism as chaos that threatens their ordered society." Morrison studied the alien faces on the screen. He had met some of them before at smaller diplomatic meetings. They had always been polite but distant. Now they were going to try to put humanity in its place. A communication came in from Earth. President Helen Rodriguez appeared on the screen. She looked tired but determined. The weight of leading humanity through this crisis showed on her face. "Admiral Morrison," the president said, "you have full authority to speak for all of humanity. The cabinet and I have discussed this situation extensively. We will not be intimidated or controlled by alien powers who fear our success. Morrison stood straighter. Understood, Madam President. What are my orders? Make it clear that Earth stands ready to defend itself and its colonies. We've come too far to be pushed around now. If they want to treat us as equals, we're ready to talk. If they want to try to control us, they'll find out what humans are really capable of. The communication ended. Morrison looked around his bridge. Crew, these were good people who had volunteered to serve humanity among the stars. They deserved to live free, not under alien control. Carter began the docking procedures as they approached the station. The massive structure grew larger and larger until it filled the entire viewing window. Lights blinked along its surface, and ships from dozens of different species moved in and out of the docking bays. Sir, Carter said, we're receiving docking. Instructions from station control. They're directing us to Bay 47, Morrison nodded. Take us in, Commander. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity is made of. The used Defiance slowly entered the docking bay. Around them, alien ships of all shapes and sizes were docked. Some looked like giant crystals, others like living organisms. The diversity was amazing, but Morrison's mind was focused on the task. Ahead dot as the ship settled into its docking clamps, Morrison made his final preparations. He put on his dress uniform with all the medals and insignia that showed his rank and service. Today he wasn't just representing the United Earth Space Force, he was representing all of humanity. Brooks handed him a final briefing packet. Everything you need to know about Council procedures and alien customs, he said. Remember, showing weakness will only encourage them to push harder. Morrison took the packet and headed for the airlock. Carter and Brooks would accompany him to the station, along with a small security detail. The rest of the crew would remain aboard the Defiance, ready for whatever might happen. As the airlock cycled open, Morrison stepped onto the alien station. The air smelled different, and the gravity felt slightly lighter than Earth normal. Alien beings moved through the corridors, some walking, others floating, and a few moving in ways that defied human understanding. A protocol droid approached them. It was tall and thin with multiple arms and spoke in a mechanical voice. Admiral. Morrison, you are expected in Council Chamber 1. Please follow the designated path. Morrison and his team walked through the station's corridors. The walls were covered with symbols and writing from dozens of different languages. Artwork from across the galaxy decorated the spaces between doorways. It was beautiful in its own way, but Morrison couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking into a trap. They reached the council chamber, and Morrison paused at the entrance. Beyond these doors lay the future of humanity, the aliens thought. They could intimidate Earth into submission. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Morrison straightened his shoulders and walked into the chamber. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when humanity was pushed too far. The council chamber was enormous. Morrison had never seen anything like it in his life. The room was shaped like a huge bowl with seats arranged in circles going up toward the ceiling. Representatives from 47 different alien species sat in those seats, all looking down at the center where Morrison now stood. The air in the chamber felt thick and heavy. Translation devices hummed softly as they converted dozens of different languages into sounds that each species could understand. Morrison could hear whispers and strange noises coming from the alien representatives as they talked among themselves. Chancellor Vexfer of the Zephyrin Empire stood up from his seat. He was tall and made of what looked like living crystal. His body caught the light and threw it back in rainbow patterns. When he spoke, his voice made a sound like wind chimes mixed with thunder. Admiral Morrison of the human species, Vexfer said, you have been summoned before this council to answer serious charges. Your people have been acting in ways that threaten the peace and stability of our galaxy. Morrison remained standing. Straight and calm, he had expected this. Commander Carter and Dr. Brooks stood behind him, ready to provide support if needed. The security detail waited near the chamber entrance, their hands resting on their weapons. The charges are as follows, Vexfer continued. First, humanity has been expanding at a rate never seen before in galactic history. You have established colonies in 17 star systems in only 50 years. This aggressive expansion threatens the territorial agreements that have kept peace for centuries. Morrison listened carefully. He knew that every word spoken here would be transmitted back to Earth and recorded in the archives. This was history being made, and he had to get it right. Second, Vexfer said, your species has been building military installations and weapons that violate the spirit of galactic law. You have armed your colonies and created defensive systems that suggest you are preparing for aggressive action against your neighbors. Commander Zixthal of the Korathi hegemony stood up next. He looked like a giant octopus with thick, muscular tentacles and large, intelligent eyes. His voice was deeper than Nexver's and carried an edge of anger. We have evidence, Zixthal said, waving one of his tentacles toward a large display screen. Your military installations are not defensive. They are positioned to threaten trade. Routes and colonies belonging to other species. You have weapons platforms and systems that should be neutral territory. The display screen showed images of human space stations and orbital platforms. To Morrison, they looked like normal defensive installations, but he could see how aliens might view them as threatening. The platforms were powerful and positioned to control key areas of space. Third, Zixthal continued, humanity has refused to submit to galactic oversight. Other species allow council inspectors to visit their military facilities and review their defensive capabilities. Humans have denied all such requests. This suggests you have something to hide. Morrison felt his jaw tighten. The aliens were trying to make humanity look like the aggressor when they were the ones calling this meeting to put restrictions on human expansion. But he remained calm and waited for them to finish. The representative of the Vexen Collective rose next. It was hard to tell what the being looked like exactly because it seemed to shift and change shape as Morrison watched. The Vexen spoke with many voices at once, creating a strange harmony that was both beautiful and unsettling. The collective has observed human behavior patterns, the Vexen said. Your species exhibits chaotic individualism that threatens the ordered structure of galactic society. You do not follow established protocols. You make decisions without consulting proper authorities. This unpredictability makes you dangerous. Dr. Brooks leaned forward and whispered to Morrison, they're afraid of us because we don't fit their expectations. Every other species they've encountered has been willing to accept junior status in the galactic community. We haven't, Morrison nodded slightly. He was beginning to understand the real nature of the charges against humanity. The aliens weren't concerned about human aggression. They were worried about human independence. More alien representatives stood up to speak. The Calarian Federation complained that human traders were undercutting their prices and taking business away from established companies. The Thraxian Assembly accused humans of being too quick to use violence to solve problems. The Centauri Union claimed that human colonies were polluting space with their industrial activities. Each accusation revealed more about the aliens' real concerns. They had controlled the galaxy for thousands of years, and they didn't want to share that control with newcomers. Humanity's rapid growth and refusal to accept a subordinate position threatened their established order. Morrison listened to each speaker carefully. Carter took notes on a datapad, recording everything for later analysis. Brooks provided quiet translations and cultural context when the automatic systems couldn't capture the full meaning of what was being said. The chamber fell silent when the last alien finished speaking. All eyes turned toward Morrison. He could feel the weight of their expectation. They wanted him to apologize for humanity's actions and promise to accept whatever restrictions they decided to impose. Morrison took a deep breath and stepped forward. His voice carried clearly through the chamber as he began to speak. Honored representatives, he said, I have listened to your concerns about humanity's actions. I understand your fears about our expansion and our military capabilities. But I believe there is something important you need to understand about my species. He paused and looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many alien representatives as possible. You have made one critical error in your assessment of humanity. You assume we are unprepared for war. You assume we will back down when faced with superior numbers or threats of economic sanctions. Morrison's voice grew stronger as he continued. You are wrong. We have been preparing for this conversation since the day we first left Earth. We knew that eventually someone would try to put us in our place. We knew that our success would make others nervous. And we have been getting ready. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers and alarmed discussions. Morrison could see the aliens exchanging glances and communicating through methods he couldn't understand. The translation devices worked overtime as dozens of species tried to process what they had just heard. Chancellor Thexver's crystal form flickered with rapid color changes, which Brooks had told Morrison indicated extreme agitation. Commander Zixthal's tentacles writhed as he conferred with his advisors. The Vexen Collective representative went completely still, its compound eyes fixed on Morrison. You speak of war, Thexver said finally, his voice carrying a note of disbelief. No species has threatened war in this chamber for over 1,000 years. The galaxy has been at peace, Morrison nodded. Yes, it has been at peace. But that peace has been maintained by the strong controlling the weak. You have invited us here not to discuss trade agreements or territorial disputes, but to demand that humanity accept a subordinate position in your galactic order. He gestured toward the alien representatives. You want us to limit our expansion, submit to your inspections, and accept whatever restrictions you choose to impose. You want us to be like every other species that has joined your community, grateful for whatever scraps you choose to throw our way. Morrison's expression hardened. But humanity is not like the other species you've encountered. We have our own history of conflict and conquest. We understand what it means to fight for freedom and independence, and we will not surrender that freedom to anyone. The chamber fell silent again. Morrison could feel the tension building as the aliens processed his words. Some looked angry, others frightened. A few seemed impressed by his boldness. You have a choice to make, Morrison continued. You can accept humanity as an equal partner in the galactic community, or you can try to force us into submission. But if you choose the second option, you should understand exactly what you're getting into. Morrison paused for effect, letting his words sink in. We are not the helpless newcomers you think we are. We are ready for war. Morrison's words sent shock waves through the chamber. He could see the alien representatives leaning forward in their seats, their various forms of communication creating a buzz of activity that filled the air. The translation devices worked harder as panic spread through the assembled species, but Morrison was not finished. He had come here to deliver a message, and he intended to make sure it was heard clearly. He activated a small device on his wrist, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. The display showed a detailed map of human space, but it was not what the aliens expected to see. You see 17 colonial systems, Morrison said, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. What you don't see is the real extent of human preparation for this day. The holographic map began to change. New markers appeared throughout human space, showing installations and facilities that had been hidden from alien sensors. The 17 visible colonies were just the tip of the iceberg. The true scope of human expansion was far larger than anyone had imagined. 137 hidden installations, Morrison continued. Weapon platforms disguised as mining stations. Manufacturing centers built inside asteroids. Mobile defense fleets that can move between systems without being detected. All of this has been constructed over the past 20 years. Commander Carter had helped Morrison prepare this presentation during their journey to the station. Every piece of information had been carefully selected to show the aliens that humanity was not defenseless. The hidden installations were real, and they were all connected in a network that covered human space like a web. Dr. Brooks watched the aliens' reactions carefully. He had studied their cultures and psychology for years, and he could see the fear growing in their eyes. The Zephyrians' crystalline forms were flickering between different colors, showing their emotional distress. The Korathi's tentacles were moving in agitated patterns. The Vexen Collective's representative had gone completely still, which Brooks knew meant they were communicating rapidly with their hive mind. "We call it the Terran Defense Grid," Morrison explained. "Every human colony, every trade route, every mining operation is part of an integrated defense network. When one part is threatened, the entire system responds. We learned this from our own history on Earth." The holographic display showed how the defense network operated. If aliens attacked, one human colony, weapons platforms throughout the region would activate. Hidden manufacturing centers would begin producing more weapons and ships. Mobile fleets would converge on the threat from multiple directions. "You see, we studied the history of every species in this galaxy," Morrison said. "We learned about the wars that were fought thousands of years ago. We studied the tactics that were used and the technologies that decided those conflicts, and we noticed something interesting." Morrison paused, letting the tension build. The alien representatives were hanging on his every word, trying to understand what humanity had discovered about their own past. "None of you have fought a real war in over 1,000 years, Morrison continued. "You've had small conflicts, police, actions, and territorial disputes. But you haven't faced an enemy that was willing to fight with everything they had. You've forgotten what total war looks like." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several alien representatives stood up to protest Morrison's words. Chancellor Thexver's crystal form blazed with red light as he called for order. Commander Zixthal's tentacles writhed as he tried to speak over the noise Morrison waited for the commotion to die down before continuing. "Humanity has never forgotten. We fought 2 world wars on our home planet. We've seen what happens when entire civilizations commit everything they have to destroying their enemies. We know what it costs and we know what it takes to win." The holographic display changed again, showing human military doctrine and training programs. Unlike the alien forces, which were designed for peacekeeping and small conflicts, human military units were trained for large-scale warfare. They practiced fighting outnumbered and outgunned. They learned to use every advantage they could find. "Our ships are built differently than yours," Morrison explained. "Your vessels are designed for comfort and efficiency during long peacekeeping. Missions, our ships are built to take damage and keep fighting. They're designed to be repaired quickly and to operate independently for months at a time." Dr. Brooks provided cultural context as Morrison spoke. He had studied alien ship designs and military organization. The major galactic powers had impressive fleets, but they were organized for maintaining order in a peaceful galaxy. They had never faced an enemy that was willing to fight a war of attrition. "Our weapons are different too," Morrison continued. "You've developed energy weapons that are precise and clean. They're perfect for police actions where you want to minimize casualties. Our weapons are designed to destroy enemy ships as quickly and efficiently as possible." The holographic display showed examples of human weapons technology. Kinetic projectiles that could punch through alien shields. Nuclear missiles that could take out entire fleets. Electronic warfare systems that could disable enemy communications and sensors. "But the most important difference," Morrison said, "is not our technology or our tactics, it's our mindset. You've been in charge of this galaxy for so long that you've forgotten what it's like to have someone say no to you. You expect other species to back down when faced with superior numbers or economic pressure." Morrison's voice grew harder as he continued. "Humanity will not back down. We've been preparing for this conversation since the day we first left Earth. We knew that eventually someone would try to put us in our place. We knew that our success would make others nervous, and we have been getting ready." The chamber fell silent as the aliens processed what they had heard. The holographic display continued to show the true extent of human military preparation. Hidden bases, secret weapons, and defensive systems that had been built in anticipation of exactly this moment. "You have a choice to make," Morrison said. "Finally, you can accept us as equals in this galaxy, or you can try to force us into submission. But understand this clearly, if you choose war, you will be fighting an enemy that has been preparing for war since before we left our home planet." Morrison looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many alien representatives as possible. We are not the peaceful, defenseless newcomers you think we are. We are the descendants of warriors who conquered their own world. We are the children of a species that learned to fight in the darkness between stars, and we are ready. The silence in the chamber was deafening. Morrison could see the fear in the aliens' eyes as they realized what they were facing. They had expected to intimidate humanity into submission. Instead, they had discovered that humans had been anticipating this moment for decades. Perhaps, Morrison said, his voice cutting through the silence, you would like a demonstration of human capabilities. He nodded to Commander Carter, who activated a secure communication channel back to the UES Defiance. Throughout the star system, human ships that had been hidden began to reveal themselves. The demonstration was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. Captain Roy Patterson stood on the bridge of the U's Vigilant, watching his tactical display with calm attention. His destroyer had been conducting what appeared to be routine patrol operations in the outer edges of the Zarian system for the past 3 days. The alien ships monitoring the area had dismissed them as standard escort vessels. Nothing to worry about, they were wrong. Patterson received the coded signal from Admiral Morrison aboard the station. The time for hiding was over. It was time to show the galaxy what human military forces could really do. Patterson turned to his communications officer and gave the order that would change everything. Lieutenant Davis, transmit activation code Zulu 7 to all units, Patterson commanded. Operation reveal begins now. Throughout the star system, human ships that had been invisible to alien sensors began to decloak. The User Vigilant was not alone as the aliens had believed. Hidden in the asteroid fields, tucked behind moons, and drifting in the empty spaces between planets, an entire squadron of human vessels had been waiting for this moment. The first ship to appear was the UES Guardian, a heavy cruiser that had been concealed behind one of Zarian Prime's smaller moons. Its stealth systems deactivated with a shimmer of energy, revealing a vessel 3 times larger than what the aliens had expected. The Guardian's weapon systems immediately began targeting the defensive satellites protecting the Council Station. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster, the Vigilance Tactical Officer, reported the targeting solutions to Patterson in real time. Sir, we have locks on all primary defense platforms. The alien sensors never detected our approach vectors. We could disable their entire defensive grid in under 5 minutes. Patterson nodded but kept his expression calm. The demonstration was carefully planned to show capability without actually causing damage. The goal was to make the aliens understand what they were facing, not to start a shooting war. At least not yet. The UES Defender emerged from the shadow of a gas giant, its hull gleaming in the system's starlight. The ship had been drifting powered down for days, appearing to be nothing more than space debris to the alien scanning systems. Now it revealed itself as a fully armed battleship with enough firepower to take on an entire alien fleet. Captain Susan Miller aboard the Defender began broadcasting targeting data to the other human ships. Her vessel had been secretly mapping the defensive positions of every alien fleet in the system. The Zephyrian battle group near the station, the Korathi patrol ships on the system's edge, and the Vexen collective vessels hidden in the asteroid belt had all been located and tracked. All alien vessels are accounted for, Miller reported over the secured communication channel. They have no ships or weapons that we haven't already analyzed and prepared countermeasures for. More human ships continued to appear throughout the system. The UES Sentinel decloaked near the station's main docking bay, its sensors already penetrating the alien defensive networks. The U's Ranger appeared from behind a comet, its long-range weapons trained on the Korathi command ship. The U's Valiant emerged from what had seemed like empty space, its stealth technology having fooled even the most advanced alien sensors. Back in the council chamber, Morrison watched the alien representatives' faces as reports flooded in from their military commanders. The holographic display in the center of the chamber now showed the real tactical situation in the Zarian system. What had appeared to be a few human escort ships was actually a full battle group capable of taking on everything the aliens had. In the area, Dr. Brooks monitored the alien communications channels, translating the increasingly panicked messages for Morrison. The Zephyrian fleet commander was demanding to know how so many human ships had approached undetected. The Korathi admiral was frantically trying to reorganize his forces to respond to threats that seemed to appear from nowhere. The Vexen Collective was silent, but Brooks knew their hive mind was processing this new information at incredible speed. "Admiral," Brooks whispered, "their military commanders are requesting permission to go to full alert status. They're scared." Morrison nodded, but continued watching the display. The demonstration was proceeding exactly as planned. Captain Patterson had coordinated with the other ship commanders to reveal their forces in a way that would maximize the psychological impact on the aliens. The used Striker appeared next, rising from the planet's atmosphere where it had been hiding. In the upper cloud layers, its atmospheric flight capabilities had allowed it to remain completely invisible to the station's sensors. The ship's sudden appearance from within the planet's gravity sent shock waves through the alien command. Structure: Lieutenant Commander Foster continued providing targeting updates to Morrison. "Sir, we now have weapons locks on 47 alien vessels and all major defensive installations. Total time from start of operation to complete tactical dominance, 7 minutes and 32 seconds. The speed of the operation was as impressive as its scope. The aliens had been caught completely off guard. Their supposedly secure system had been infiltrated by human forces that had been watching and waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves." Captain Jane Roberts aboard the UES Thunder completed the demonstration by emerging from the system's primary jump point. Her ship had been positioned to intercept any alien reinforcements that might try to enter the system. The Thunder's appearance at the jump point sent a clear message. The humans controlled not just the space around the station, but the entire system. The final ship to decloak was the UES Lightning, which had been drifting among the station's docking platforms disguised as a cargo vessel. Its sudden transformation from apparent merchant ship to fully armed warship happened less than a kilometer from the station's main hull. The psychological impact on the aliens was immediate and devastating. Morrison could see the fear in the alien representatives' eyes as they realized how thoroughly they had been outmaneuvered. The humans had not just hidden a few ships in the system. They had positioned an entire battle group in places where it could strike at any target within minutes. "This is just one system," Morrison announced to the stunned council. "We have similar capabilities in every system where humans operate. What you're seeing here is not our full strength. It's just what we happen to have available for a diplomatic meeting." The implications of Morrison's words sank in slowly. If humanity had this much military power positioned for a simple diplomatic mission, what did they have protecting their actual colonies and strategic installations? The aliens were beginning to understand that they had seriously underestimated their opponents. Chancellor Thexver's crystal form flickered rapidly between colors as he processed the reports from his fleet commanders. The Zephyrian Empire's forces in the system were powerful, but they were positioned for ceremonial duties, not actual combat. The human ships were clearly ready for war. Commander Zixthal's tentacles writhed as he received updates from his own vessels. The Korathi hegemony prided itself on military efficiency, but their ships were designed for police actions and peacekeeping. They had never faced an enemy that was willing to fight with such ruthless preparation. The Vexen Collective's representative remained motionless, but Morrison could see the compound eyes tracking every piece of information on the display. The hive mind was calculating odds and probabilities, trying to determine if their forces could win a war against humanity. The answer was becoming clear. They could not. Morrison allowed the silence to stretch before speaking again. "We've been preparing for this conversation for 50 years, he said. "Every human colony, every trade route, every diplomatic mission has been part of a larger plan. We knew that eventually someone would try to put us in our place. We've been getting ready." The demonstration continued for another few minutes as the human ships completed their tactical positioning. When it was over, 12 human vessels had complete control of the Zarian system. The aliens' defensive networks had been mapped. Their fleets had been surrounded, and their supposedly secure station was at the mercy of human weapons. Now, Morrison said, let's discuss the future of human-alien relations. The council chamber had fallen into a tense silence that seemed to stretch on forever. Morrison could feel the weight of thousands of years of galactic history pressing down on this moment. The alien representatives sat in their seats, their various forms of communication creating a low buzz of activity as they tried to process what they had just witnessed. Chancellor Vexver was the first to break the silence. His crystalline form had stopped flickering and now glowed with a steady blue light that Dr. Brooks had told Morrison indicated deep thought and concern. When the Zephyrian leader spoke, his voice carried none of its earlier authority. Admiral Morrison, Vexver said slowly, what you have shown us changes everything. The Council has governed this galaxy for over 3,000 years. We have maintained peace through cooperation and mutual understanding. What you are suggesting threatens that entire system. Morrison nodded respectfully. He had not come here to destroy the galactic order, but he would not allow humanity to be crushed by it either. Chancellor, I understand your concerns, but you must understand ours as well. You invited us here not to discuss cooperation, but to demand our submission. You want us to accept restrictions that would make us second-class citizens in our own galaxy. Commander Zixthal's tentacles moved in agitated patterns as he leaned forward in his seat. The restrictions we propose are for the good of all species. Unlimited expansion leads to conflict. Uncontrolled military buildup leads to war. We have seen this pattern before in galactic history, and we have seen it in our own history, Morrison replied. We know what happens when peaceful people are forced to choose between freedom and security. We know what happens when the strong demand that the weak submit for their own good. It never ends well. Dr. Brooks stepped forward slightly and whispered to Morrison, the smaller species are watching this carefully. They're realizing that if you can stand up to the major powers, maybe they can too. This is about more than just humanity's place in the galaxy. Morrison understood. The galactic order had been built on the idea that the older, more established species would guide and control the younger ones. If humanity could successfully challenge that system, it would inspire other species to question their own subordinate positions. The representative of the Vexen Collective finally spoke, its multiple voices creating an eerie harmony. The collective has analyzed human military capabilities and psychological profiles. You are correct that we did not anticipate this level of preparation. But war would be costly for all sides. Surely there is a peaceful solution. Morrison appreciated the Vexen's directness. Unlike the others, they were not trying to hide their fear behind diplomatic language. They were stating facts and looking for practical solutions. There is a peaceful solution, Morrison said. Accept humanity as an equal partner in the galactic community. Allow us to expand and develop without arbitrary restrictions. Treat us the same way you treat each other. General Pete Collins, humanity's military attaché, stepped forward with a formal document. He had been quiet throughout the meeting, but now his presence reminded everyone that this was not just a diplomatic discussion. This was a military confrontation, with real consequences. This document contains humanity's formal position, Collins said, handing the datapad to Chancellor Vexver. We will continue to expand our colonies, defend our territories, and trade freely throughout the galaxy. Any attempt to restrict these rights will be considered an act of war. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Morrison watched as the alien representatives realized that humanity was not bluffing. The military demonstration had been impressive, but this formal declaration made it clear that humans were prepared to back up their words with action. Commander Carter monitored the communications from the alien fleets throughout the system. The military commanders were frantically trying to develop new tactical plans to deal with the human threat. But every simulation and analysis came to the same conclusion. They were not prepared for a war against an enemy that had been planning for this moment for decades. The Zephyrian Empire's military is impressive, Carter reported quietly to Morrison, but they've never faced an enemy willing to fight total war. Their ships are designed for show and peacekeeping, not for sustained combat operations, Morrison nodded. The Human Intelligence Services had been studying alien military capabilities for years. They knew the strengths and weaknesses of every major fleet in the galaxy. The aliens had superior numbers, but humans had superior preparation and motivation. The Karathi hegemony has more ships than we do, Carter continued, but they're designed for police actions, not major battles. They've never had to fight an enemy that was willing to accept heavy casualties to achieve victory. Dr. Brooks provided cultural analysis as the aliens continued their discussions. The Vexen Collective is the real wild card. Their hive mind coordination gives them tactical advantages, but they've never faced an enemy that understood their communication methods. Our electronic warfare systems could disrupt their coordination. The chamber buzzed with activity as the alien representatives consulted with their governments and military commanders. Morrison could see the fear in their eyes as they realized the full implications of what they were facing. They had expected to intimidate humanity into submission. Instead, they had discovered that humans were prepared to fight for their freedom. Smaller alien representative stood up to speak. It was Ambassador Krelton of the Alteran Republic, one of the younger species that had joined the galactic community only a few centuries ago. His people had been forced to accept restrictions similar to what the major powers wanted to impose on humanity. Admiral Morrison, Krelton said, the Alteran Republic has listened to your words with great interest. We have been subject to the same restrictions you refuse to accept. We admire your courage in standing up to the major powers. Morrison could see the nervousness in the smaller alien's posture. Speaking against the established order took courage, especially for a species that depended on the major powers for protection and trade. If I may ask, Krelton continued, what assurances can you give that human military power will not be used to threaten smaller species like mine? It was a fair question, and Morrison had expected it. The Alteran Republic has never threatened humanity or tried to restrict our growth. We have no quarrel with you or any species that treats us as equals. Our military preparations are defensive, designed to protect our freedom and independence. Morrison looked around the chamber, making eye contact with representatives from the smaller species. But we will not stand by and watch while the major powers try to control and restrict the growth of younger civilizations. If you want to expand and develop without artificial limitations, humanity will support that right. The implications of Morrison's words were clear. Humanity was not just challenging the restrictions placed on them. They were challenging the entire system that kept smaller species under the control of the major powers. The galactic order was facing its greatest threat in thousands of years, Chancellor. The expert called for a recess so the major powers could consult with their governments. Morrison knew this was the critical moment. The aliens had to decide whether to accept humanity as an equal or try to force them into submission through war. As the chamber emptied, Morrison reflected on how far humanity had come. 50 years ago, they had been confined to a single planet. Now they were challenging the established powers of the galaxy and offering hope to smaller species that had been oppressed for centuries. The next few hours would determine the future of the galaxy. Morrison was ready for whatever decision the aliens made. Humanity had warned them that they were ready for war. Soon, the galaxy would discover whether that warning had been enough to secure peace. 6 hours had passed since the council had called for recess. Morrison sat in a small waiting room adjacent to the main chamber, reviewing reports from human intelligence sources throughout the galaxy. The major alien powers had been in emergency session with their governments, and the results were finally becoming clear. Commander Carter entered the room with the latest communication intercepts. Sir, we're picking up massive fleet movements throughout Zephyrian space. They're pulling ships back from their outer territories and concentrating them around their core worlds. Morrison nodded. The Zephyrian Empire was preparing for the possibility of war, but they were doing it defensively. That was a good sign. If they had been planning an immediate attack, they would have been moving their fleets toward human space instead of protecting their own territory. Dr. Brooks had been monitoring alien diplomatic channels and cultural broadcasts. The smaller species are reacting strongly to what happened here today. 3 different governments have formally requested meetings with human representatives. They want to discuss mutual defense agreements. Morrison smiled at that news. Humanity had not just challenged the major powers. They had inspired other species to question the restrictions that had been placed on them. The galactic order was changing, and it was changing in humanity's favor. General Collins returned from his own meetings with alien military attaches. The Korathi hegemony's military leaders are privately admitting they're not prepared for a war with us. Their ships are designed for police actions, not major battles. They're advising their government to seek a peaceful solution. The door chimed, and a protocol droid entered to announce that the council was ready to reconvene. Morrison straightened his uniform and prepared to hear the aliens' decision. Whatever they chose, humanity was ready to face the consequences. The council chamber felt different when Morrison entered. The tension was still there, but it had changed from hostile to uncertain. The alien representatives looked tired, and many of them seemed to have aged during the long recess. The weight of making decisions that would affect the entire galaxy was showing on their faces. Chancellor Thexfer stood up slowly. His crystalline form no longer blazed with the confident colors it had shown earlier. Now it glowed with a steady, subdued light that Dr. Brooks had told Morrison indicated resignation and acceptance. Admiral Morrison, Thexfer began, the Major, powers have consulted with their governments and military commanders. We have reviewed the intelligence reports about human military capabilities and analyzed the potential costs of a galactic war. Morrison remained standing straight and calm. He could sense that the aliens had made their decision, but he wanted to hear it stated clearly before he allowed himself to relax. The Zephyrian Empire withdraws its objections to human expansion. Thexfer continued, we recognize that humanity has the right to defend itself and its colonies. We propose the establishment of formal diplomatic relations and a military exchange program to prevent future misunderstandings. The words hit Morrison like a physical blow. The Zephyrian Empire, the most powerful force in the galaxy, was backing down. They had chosen peace over war, negotiation over confrontation. Commander Zixtel rose next, his tentacles moving in what Dr. Brooks had identified as a gesture of respect. The Korathi hegemony also withdraws its objections. We propose the establishment of formal trade agreements and technology-sharing protocols. We believe that cooperation will serve all our peoples better than conflict. Morrison felt a surge of relief and pride. The Korathi had been the most militaristic of the major powers, but even they had decided that war with humanity was not worth the cost. The representative of the Vexen Collective spoke last among the major powers. The collective has analyzed all possible outcomes of continued confrontation with humanity. The probability of success is insufficient to justify the costs. We propose non-interference protocols and the establishment of neutral zones between our territories. One by one, the smaller alien species added their voices to the growing chorus of acceptance. The Alteran Republic formally requested a mutual defense agreement with humanity. The Kaelerian Federation offered to open their trade routes to human merchants. The Centauri Union proposed joint research projects. Morrison could hardly believe what he was hearing. The galaxy's power structure was reorganizing itself around humanity's refusal to accept a subordinate position. The threat of war had accomplished what years of diplomacy might not have achieved, but there was one more announcement. That would make the victory complete. Chancellor Thexfer raised his hand for silence and delivered the final decision. The Galactic Council hereby extends an offer of full membership to the human species, Thexfer announced. You will have the same rights and privileges as any other member species. You will be subject to the same laws and regulations, but you will also have a voice in creating and changing those laws. The chamber erupted in what Morrison could only describe as controlled chaos. Alien representatives congratulated each other on avoiding war while simultaneously expressing concern about the implications of the decision. The galaxy had just accepted humanity as an equal partner, and everyone was still trying to figure out what that meant. Morrison stepped forward to deliver humanity's response. The human species accepts membership in the Galactic Council with gratitude and respect. We look forward to working with all member species to build a safer, more prosperous galaxy for everyone. But Morrison was not finished. He had one more condition that needed to be clearly understood. However, we accept membership with the understanding that we will not be subject to restrictions that don't apply to all member species. We will contribute to galactic security and prosperity, but we will not be constrained by those who fear our potential. The aliens nodded their agreement. They had learned today that humanity could not be intimidated or controlled. The only way to deal with humans was to treat them as equals. Captain LeVar Bennett reported from the UES Sovereign that alien fleets throughout the galaxy were standing down from alert status. The crisis had passed without a single shot being fired in anger. Humanity had achieved through preparation and determination what might have cost millions of lives in actual warfare. Dr. Brooks observed that the galaxy had fundamentally changed in the span of a single day. The old order of established powers dictating terms to newer species was finished. Humanity had proven that strength, properly demonstrated, could secure peace more effectively than submission. As the council session concluded and the formal agreements were signed, Morrison reflected on what had been accomplished. Humanity had not sought conflict, but they had been prepared for it. In showing their readiness for war, they had instead secured peace and equality. The U's Defiance departed the station with humanity's new status confirmed. The galaxy would never again underestimate the species from Earth. Admiral Morrison's final log entry recorded the historic moment. Today, humanity took its place not as supplicants, but as equals among the stars. We warned the galaxy that we were ready for war. In doing so, we made sure that war would not come. The message had been delivered and received. Humanity was ready for whatever the galaxy might bring, and the galaxy now understood that truth. The age of human expansion among the stars had truly begun.